Hello, everyone. I'm Cyrus Webb, and welcome to this episode of Daily Dose of Good News. For those living in the United States, I know today is Thanksgiving. For those joining us around the world, we're so glad you all could join us on this Thursday, November 27th. Have another great segment coming up for you guys today in today's Daily Dose of Good News. As you know, we are sharing some of the conversations I had with individuals on Wednesday, October the 29th. We broke the Guinness World Record for most TV interviews in 12 hours. One of those individuals I had never interviewed before, never met her in person before for an interview, and that was author Wynne Huddleston. Wynne joined me to be able to talk about her writing journey and inspiration. You're part of that conversation today. Enjoy this episode of Daily Dose of Good News. Wynne, thank you so much for being a part of this with us. Really, it's great to meet you in person for the first time that I can remember. But as you mentioned, we had actually connected years ago. So glad that we connected. I think through Janet Taylor Perry connected us. So Janet's going to be on later on. Really appreciate that. So I had some questions for you, and actually we have a first here on part of our day. Wynne's going to share some from her book as well, which I'm excited about that. But Wynne, the first question I have for you is, poetry is something that is universal. What helped you to find your own poetic voice?
I would have to credit my teachers. My fourth grade teacher had us memorize and recite poems from the masters, such as William Cullen Bryant. My sixth grade teacher gave us the assignment of writing a poem, so that was my first formal poem that I remember. And when I got to college at Meridian Community College, my choir director, Dr. Hermits, encouraged me to submit my poems to the college paper, so I had some printed in that. I kept writing, but I didn't share my poems until much later when my Aunt Bonnie Ivy asked me to take a creative writing class with her at the University of West Alabama at Livingston. And that's where Dr. Joe Taylor told me that most publications will only publish free verse. So then I changed my style to that.
Wow. Isn't it interesting, as a side note, how we've seen publishing changing for poems? Because yes. I remember I love poetry myself. I write poetry, and we used to be told it wasn't marketable, that it was something you couldn't do. The world has definitely changed. You dedicate your book to your parents, I know, because I bought it on Amazon. So how did they impact you in the path you've taken?
My parents were both avid readers, and they provided my sisters and me with plenty of reading material. We had a book of knowledge encyclopedias. Okay. And kids today don't know what an encyclopedia is, but at that time it was the closest thing we had to an internet. And these books were full of poetry by masters that I just loved, and I read and reread those poems. My mother also had me in a book club, so I got a new book in the mail every few weeks, and I loved reading. I made my own little library called the Friends and Family Library.
Wow.
And then we also had a set of Reader's Digest condensed books, and they had the masters like Alice in Wonderland, Gulliver's Travels. So I read all of those as well.
Yeah, I still have some of those books on my bookshelf as well. And it's so good, it's so good when you meet a fellow bookie. It's so exciting because people, because of the way we read has changed so much. I think people actually having physical books is becoming more and more rare. So how does it feel to have your poetry receive the recognition that it has?
Well, great. For so long, I had no idea where to submit my poetry, and I was 50 years old before I got serious about finding out where. Luckily, the internet came along at that time, so I was able to do a lot of research on there. And I did find online journals and print publications and anthologies where I had my work published. Also, a friend directed me to the Mississippi Writers Guild, and that greatly helped me. And then I found the Mississippi Poetry Society. So their conferences and meetings helped me greatly develop as a writer. And it was an honor to be selected as the 2014 Mississippi Poetry Society Poet of the Year. And that's when they published my book, From the Depths of Red Bluff, which is available on Amazon. I received a pushcart nomination from Deep South magazine, and I won a environmental poetry contest for my poem about the Gulf oil spill. So that was great. But a writer's greatest accomplishment, to me anyway, is simply to have someone read your work and be moved emotionally by your work.
Yeah. Pauline says on Amazon, I shared a virtual writing guild with you several years ago. She said,
Yes.
I remember how amazing she was. Glad to meet her in person today. Oh, great.
Thank you.
One of the great things about being in person, so if you guys have not gotten here yet, make sure you guys do make plans. We're going to be here at 8 p.m., so make sure you guys do come. Would love to be able to take pictures with you guys, be a part of this historic day with us, as well as we're going throughout up until 8 p.m. as well today. So, I think, for a lot of people, when it comes to, you mentioned the Gulf oil spill, which is a great example. The written word holds such a special place for so many people. How have words helped you get through events in life?
Well, yeah, writing is very therapeutic. It just helps to get your feelings down on paper. And as a church musician from an early age and a retired music teacher of 30 years, I think that music and poetry are sister arts, and they continue to be a great emotional outlet for me.
And so I want to ask you this. I think, because we were just talking about poetry in particular, Wynne, a lot of people will tell you that some things are not marketable. You can't do certain things. Have you ever felt like you wouldn't succeed as an author?
Well, I've always been driven to succeed. I guess in part due to my parents, they always expected the best of me and everything. So, I've had some poems rejected from some publications, but I've also had those same poems published in a different publication. So you can't just let one editor make you think that your poem isn't worth anything or isn't meaningful. You just need to find the right place and the right fit for it.
Such a great point. So your bonus question, Wynne, is any plans to write your autobiography?
No, I will let my poetry speak for itself. Now, all of my poems are a reflection of growing up in the South. For example, in my book, From the Depths of Red Bluff, I have a poem called Sweet Sunny Summers I would like to read.
Sure.
Sweet sunny summers of blackberry pie, red light, green light, and mother may I. Chickening out halfway through, I'll show you mine if you, parting the wind with the wheels of my bike, puppy at my heels. Lost in the woods right behind my own house, climbing mimosa trees, falling out. Quiet as a mouse, no, a worm, while Pop watches the news. Chores for Mom, folding towels, making beds, being swung on a quilt and then flung on the bed. Clutching Sis, watching TV, afraid of monkeys, afraid to see the Wicked Witch on the Wizard of Oz. On Sunday, church is scary too because of all the hellfire preaching and the creepy cemetery. Boo. Swinging on the front porch at Grandma and Grandpa's, listening to my uncles playing guitars and fiddles until the fat frogs croaked. And the beach ball sun finally broke and bounced out of sight just behind the spiky gate of black pines.
Oh, wow. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Again, everyone, Wynne Huddleston has been our guest for this part of our interview. Wynne, thank you so much for saying yes to this. Really appreciate
Thank you for inviting me.
it. Glad to do it. To have Wynne Huddleston join us for our special day. And we thank you for joining us for this episode of Daily Dose of Good News. Be back with you guys tomorrow to wrap up this week. Until then, make sure you guys are sharing good news with others and being a source of good news for those that you meet. Have a great day. We'll talk soon.